This video is going to be a film study look at what appears to be a timeless coverage concept across multiple levels of football, and that's cover three. I'm going to focus the film and my discussion points generally on the NFL level. Obviously, that's what we do in this channel. But I want to talk about cover three from the standpoint of how often teams are playing it in the NFL. I do track data for the Ravens and Lions defense, obviously, and then some of their prospective opponents in their division as well. I have almost 700 coverage snaps labeled what I believe to be accurately. And so I'll give you my percentage breakdown on how often NFL teams are using coverage through cover three. And I'll also reference three other websites that provide information that elevates that percentage as well. From my own personal background, I'll tell you that when I began coaching in high school, cover three was the simplest, most direct coverage to install from sixth grade on up. We could get kids in the right part of the field, and then we could start to improve the quality of their play within those coverages. When you get to the NFL level, it's different. Nonetheless, there was this almost condescending perspective on cover three in the circles that I moved in high school football, and even the people in college that I communicated with, coaches in our conference, coaches at clinics in the off season, even new guys on the staff. Hey, coach, are you really going to install cover three as your first coverage for 7-on-7 in the spring? Yes. Aren't you worried about getting beat by the pass consistently in 7-on-7? No, I don't care about Pascali and 7-on-7 stuff. We were installing coverages that we could then use as our platform to shape shift and morph into some more post-snap two safety looks that really played a role in, I think, tricking opposing teams, quarterbacks, and players because they were so dependent on us being in a one high safety look pre-snap that they were not prepared when we shifted into a two high safety look. Why do I tell you this? Because in the NFL, they do it in the opposite direction. They start in a two high safety look pre-snap and then post-snap morph or change into a single high safety look to play cover three or man free or whatever. I will tell you that when I first began to cover or try to create NFL content, I was struck by how often I thought I saw cover three. And there was a period of time where I wasn't even confident speaking on it in my videos because I thought to myself, surely there has to be some more variation than what I think I'm seeing. It took me until 2022 to really start saving and labeling plays coverage-wise in an organized manner to either refer to later or create content. And basically, in this video, we're going to look at not just who plays cover three, which is everyone in the NFL, but where, when, and perhaps why. Additional to that, we'll show the multiple different versions of cover three that there are that, if you ask me, can really, in a safe manner, cause mental delays for quarterbacks, such that on a random 2nd and 4, where they should be able to, where there's a possibility to get a completion in a certain window, that window changes post snap, and the quarterback ends up taking a sack and creating a 3rd and 8, or throws an incomplete pass because they didn't know what version of cover three they were going to see. I'm going to give you some data analysis, like I said as well. It'll be admittedly incomplete in terms of the overall percent of plays that are run in a season. For example, in 2023, I believe there's a little over 32,000 offensive plays run in the NFL. I have 688 of them categorized either Ravens, Lions, or miscellaneous. And out of that 680 plays, I have 172 of them labeled as cover three. I think it's 24.8%. So let's round it to 25% of the plays I have are indicative of a cover three. Now, there's three websites that I found that indicate the percent usage for cover three is actually higher than 30%, in fact, in 2023. One of them at 29.8, 31.4, and then 35.4 was the third one. The first one that we're going to focus on is a typical version of cover three, whereby there's no level of obfuscation, no hiding, no shifting from a two high safety look to a one high. Nonetheless, it could be accomplished from a base defense or a nickel platform. Again, these first four are going to be typical versions of cover three. Basically, they're lining up in an 8-man front with one high safety and staying in it. You end up with a 3 deep, 4 under coverage where no second level or third level player is exchanging their responsibility of coverage. Here's your 4 under umbrella and your 3 deep coverage. We'll let this run back through one more time. Maybe Lamar Jackson is getting rid of this ball a little bit late, but against the Cleveland Browns, you're conditioned to worry about the pass rush during the week in preparation and during the game. Myles Garrett's obviously going to win a lot of one-on-ones, so the 4-man rush for the Browns oftentimes can have the effectiveness of a 5-man rush. Everyone is dropping to the zone that they are pretty much assigned to from a pre-snap alignment underneath. So that's why I'm calling this a typical, and I'm drawing lines to illustrate spot drops. You know, people pattern match, and they don't just spot drop. When I began to coach, there was this, like I said, condescension towards country cover 3. And as you get through this video, hopefully I can do a good enough job of explaining to you that there are 4 or 5 different versions of cover 3 that people play, such that it's a safe way to provide a quarterback different questions that they have to answer. You could say that it's predictable in some situations, 3rd and 8, but there's often going to be some 2nd and 4s, even some 1st and 10s, where you'll see teams in a cover 3 alignment, whether that's to stop the run or to give the quarterback a different look against the pass. I'm not sure. So another one that's a typical look, this time the safety is rolling down to the field. So you got one safety here, a nickel safety aligned to the defense's left to the trip side. Sometimes you get some calls pre-snap for a particular player, an alert call. I think that's what you got here. Ends up being a 9-yard scramble by Gardner Minshew. We're not necessarily talking about the offensive execution, talking about when people play it, how they adjust the coverage. This is a 1st and 10, week 18. These two teams have played already in the regular season. You have a tightly aligned wide receiver, speed, 4.4, 4.5 speed type guy versus a tight end. So what you've got to do at some point is alert, have awareness on the backside here that you may get a climb concept. So climb concept could be from one side of the field, in this case the right side, almost a post type of route, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to run onto the space that this corner would typically cover in a cover 3, but on the backside of a 3-by-1 formation, backside of trips or backside of bunch, oftentimes, more often than not, in fact, teams are going to play man back there. Well, why? Well, because there's no one else to guard in that space, particularly when you have a running back who's lined up on the midline and not with his feet like over here with the quarterback in the shotgun where he could really perhaps threaten a wheel. There's no one to threaten that deep portion of the field quickly. The Colts do it this way by a play action pass, acting like they're going to insert the tight end. No one really bites on it. You can see at the second level, these guys are already getting out of there and pass. But a great job here by the backside inside linebacker, turning and running with the climb concept by Pittman. Free safety also kind of playing over the top of it. The point is, teams know how to attack cover 3. Obviously, teams are going to isolate the backside corner, run him off, if you will, and then try to run someone else onto that space. Oftentimes, it's a vertical clear out and then a deep over concept designed to get over the top of the flat defender to the single receiver side. Along with this, you've got to have a route that threatens the flat, essentially high-low this player. Well, the Colts aren't doing that here. They're utilizing the climb concept. Climb concept meaning tightly aligned wide receiver from one side, trying to get over the top of the second level, pseudo post route, skinny post. Unneeded here because Minshew scrambles for 9 yards. 1st and 10, base defense now for the Detroit Lions. Not necessarily a typical alignment for them because they're in a 4-3. Barnes into the boundary is lined up as an inside linebacker. He's the Sam set into the boundary. Nice delineation of cover 3. You can see the 4 under, 3 deep there. Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone, Barnes, and Branch all getting good depth such that they're forcing the quarterback, Justin Fields, to throw the ball underneath, and then they can rally downhill at angles with leverage, vice tackle, if you will, where you've got inside and outside help on one ball carrier, and you feel confident as the lesser athlete, inside linebacker, versus a receiver like DJ Moore in approaching from a certain angle. It ends up being a 5-yard completion. Notice the 4-man rush, and Brian Branch dropping out of there into the curl flat from a Sam line alignment, pretty much. Really looked like a 5-3 against that bunch set by the Bears. Last one, again, typical utilization of cover 3 where you only have one high safety, not trying to fool the defense at all. Kyle Hamilton post-snap will push to the curl flat. Malik Harrison down here into the boundary. They've walked him back, just like Barnes was on the previous play. In fact, he will work out to the flats here with motion, and then Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith work to the hook to curl area, essentially just outside the hash. In the NFL, a little bit different landmarks in high school and college football where the hashes are wider. There's your really nice underneath cover 3, or 4 deep, 4 under coverage, in a cover 3. Notice the curl flat defenders here have less depth. That's somewhat typical. You're oftentimes being high load, so you, as the curl flat defender, are trying to stay in relationship with that flat threat such that you can come downhill, make the tackle for a short gain. But oftentimes that forces these guys to be so tight up towards the line of scrimmage that there's too much room between them and the third level defender, in this case the outside corner, Brandon Stephens. Also, it's a really great job by Brandon Aiyuk to press off with the vertical, get Stephens eventually to turn a little bit too much with his back to the sideline, and his hip ends up almost crossing over here, and that's the exact point in time when Aiyuk snaps this route off towards the sideline. A great throw by Purdy, obviously. Out in space, really nothing that Brandon Stephens could do about it. My point in showing you these 4 plays initially was a setup. Give you the pre-snap looks that would clearly indicate cover 3. Not all the time, but a high percentage of the time. And then the team actually plays what they're showing pre-snap. We'll build this one layer at a time. So here we're going to show some sky cover 3 from a 2-high safety look pre-snap. You could say, Coach, I'm not really sure that guy right there is telling me that it's going to be too high because of his depth is so different. But quarterbacks don't have the all-22 view. Depending on the play clock, they don't get information from the head coach / offensive coordinator. But you've got a really great look at a cover 3 here. Maybe this guy's pushed out wider than you normally would teach at the lower levels. There's different reasons for that. I'm not going to go into them here, but you've got the 3 deep alignment with the 2 corners, and the safety ends up being a really great throw by Lamar Jackson. 4-man rush by the Browns. You didn't probably need me to tell you that. 3 deep, 4 under, 7 is only leaving 4 players to play defense with because you get 11. So it makes sense. I don't find cover 3 to be a great defense against certain quarterbacks. If you compare it to man-free against Lamar Jackson, it would be the better choice. Well, why? Well, if you're playing man-free against Lamar Jackson, these guys would generally all have their backs turned. So what happens when Lamar Jackson breaks contained, like he does here? It's going to be a huge game. Now, for cover 3, sky, you're having one of the 2 high safeties spin down to the curl flat post-snap, but we're still talking about a 4-man rush. I come from an old background of football terminology and knowledge, so when we would say sky, it was from a 3-4 structure, one outside linebacker rushing, the other outside linebacker dropping to the flats. Here you're talking about a nickel alignment, but for the Browns, so there's no outside linebackers on the field, 2 DNs. Sky and 1 safety down, the right safety, and the safety I talked about who was a little bit deeper is pushing to center field. Sky oftentimes done to the boundary, away from the nickel defender to push someone down and end up in that 4 under, 3 deep coverage that signifies cover 3. Very similar alignment here, except from a base defense by the Texans, 3 inside linebackers. Boundary side safety, Jalen Pitre is going to push down. This is a 1st and 10. Again, Week 18, Colts against the Texans. These teams had already played. Speed out into the boundary if the curl flat defender is not lined up as a second-level defender. Well, it's going to be damn tough to get to a speed out. There's really nothing that can be done here if you're talking about cover 3, corners. Who's going to be able to defend this route? The curl flat player, which was Jalen Pitre, lined up at depth trying to obscure or hide the coverage pre-snap to Gardner Minshew. Speed out's a difficult route to stop. In cover 3, you're looking at giving it up at a high percentage part of the time, unless you expand the curl flat defender number 1 or allow the corner to jump it, in which case you're then really not playing cover 3. 2 examples of sky. Safety's going to spin down, but the Colts are kind of showing it early, and they're a heavy cover 3 team. I think it's well documented. And this is not sound, to be honest with you, one aspect of this. Now, I'm not picking on a player because Julius Brents played a fantastic game that day. I actually did a film study video about him, I think 2 weeks later, as a Ravens fan, because A, he was a talented player coming in from Kansas State, and B, I thought he played his ass off. But here, the Colts are playing the backside man in a cover 3. The problem is there is a second receiver here in the person of Isaiah Likely. He's a tight end. It's kind of hidden for us, but there's no way that he's hidden for the Colts. The Ravens have got 3 into the boundary. Flowers is taking this release up the sideline. He's not trying to win here. One of my problems with a lot of the rating services and percent win rates and yards of separation, this is not designed to be a win. This is all designed to get Isaiah Likely past the second level such that you get a man turn by the corner, Julius Brents. The Ravens knew this was going to happen. How they knew, I have no idea, because no one should be doing this because, again, it's not sound. You have 2 defenders into the boundary. You can't play man on the number 1 receiver. Sky the safety down into the flats. And leave number 2, Isaiah Likely, wide open. Lamar knows, he's already confirmed just a split second before I paused it here, that Brents is going with Flowers' man. So that's why this throw is lofted and not slung in there on a quick, direct, low angle. Just for good measure, same game, same exact version of cover 3. Tight end, Mark Andrews, Flowers in the same side into the boundary. Sky cover 3 by the Colts. Ravens release the back 3 into the boundary. A little bit slightly different throw, obviously, a little bit more on a line. Colts really don't have a good option here if they're going to play cover 3 and allow this guy to man turn into the sideline. You see the difference between 33, whose back is to the sideline, and that may not actually be Brent's up there. I'm not sure if I can tell if that's 30 or 29, whose back is to the quarterback, whereas all these guys' eyes are directed at the quarterback into the backfield, except for this curl flat defender down here, but he's going to pass off the seam and then go to the flat. Lamar and the Ravens had this installed. They knew that if they gave this formation and look to the Colts, they would probably get cover 3 Sky strong. I don't really make a delineation between strong and weak in Sky. Sky strong, Sky weak, whatever. It's the same concept. You're rolling down a strong safety to one side or the other to try to defend the curl flats. In this last 2 cases, not to pick on the Colts, just not a sound version of it, but I think those 2 gave you a really great illustration of the areas of the field that the safety spins down to cover, basically near the top of the numbers, 8 to 10 yards deep. Again, I said we'll add layers or aspects to this as we go along, so you're going to get another Sky by a safety down, and then a drop on the other side. So Trayvon Walker is going to drop into the boundary, generally where outside linebackers drop. Coaches don't want to put them in too much space. It's a base defensive alignment by the Jags. So you're talking about a 3-4 structure. 2 rush outside linebackers, edge players in Allen and Walker. But because they're skying the safety here and they want to retain only a 4-man rush, 95 is going to be the contained rusher and let Walker drop out to the flats. Now, Walker doesn't play it well from the standpoint of he does glance at the receiver and then look back at the quarterback too heavy. He's dead on alignment here because he hasn't expanded enough. He's super athletic and could play it better. That's why I'm pointing it out. But we'll pause it here just as the ball's thrown so you can see the way this cover 3 looks. 3 deep. 4 under. You can see the lack of width that Walker has. Well, first of all, it's not easy to do. Be lined up at the line of scrimmage as a potential edge rusher, outside linebacker in your typical role, and then push out into the flats. You can understand why NFL teams, even with the time they have allotted, would cut corners and teach guys to look at the quarterback a little bit too often. This, if you ask me, is one of those situations where his eyes are great right now, and you would say, go on ahead and push the flats because that's your responsibility. And if you're in the flats, this ball is probably not thrown. And if it is thrown, you could possibly make a play on the ball or get a pass defended. But looking back at the quarterback, he's dead post-snap there. Finally, another version of sky and drop at the same time. Jadeveon Clowney going to drop out. They're going to sky down Kyle Hamilton. And Geno Stone works to the middle third. There's nothing revolutionary about these. I'm just trying to show you some of the ways that teams get to a cover 3 alignment post-snap from different looks pre-snap. Burrow gets out of there. He escapes a sack by Justin Madubuike. Pretty ridiculous. Still have a 4-man rush. That's Ardarius Washington blitzing off the edge. Here's your 4 under alignment. Clearly, we look to be in a man relationship there. I will tell you, these these different versions of cover three, they had an effect on the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow in particular, because he's so smart pre-snap at seeing things, there were times where he looked to throw the ball and what he thought was going to be there was not. Now, I don't know that this is necessarily one of them, but I do know that many times the Ravens were dropping their OLB into the boundary and then playing man on the single receiver back there, the backside of a cover three. And there really was nowhere for Burrow to go with the football. If he did throw it, multiple guys, the outside linebacker and maybe the corner, would have had an opportunity to make a play on it. As we work through the video, I will have probably more film near the end of the Baltimore Ravens in 2023 because they did so much of this stuff. It was a safe way to be unpredictable with your blitz element, who was rushing, but only rush four. People smarter than me have put it in better words than I just did right there. The point is, you're allowing your guys to play at depth. Second-level defenders have eyes on the quarterback. At least one corner, if not both, have eyes on the quarterback as well and can react to the football. It's a safe manner to be unpredictable and force the quarterback to go through one or two quick decisions while you, as the defender, are waiting for the ball to be released. Another term or phrase that I want to give you is going to be slightly different from what some people use, and I would venture to say different from what's on Madden or NCAA. We would call this an insert cover three. Some people call it a cover three buzz. We're talking about this safety to the left-hand side of the Steelers defense, and the Steelers do a great job of this. They always have, of pushing someone out to the flats, usually an inside linebacker, allow them to cover less space into the boundary, and drop a safety down onto the hash in a cover three. Remember, a cover three is 4 under, 3 deep. By the way, this is a 2nd and 15, so we are talking about a long yardage situation. Week 13 against the Cardinals. Pre-snap, these guys have communicated here. They're kind of on a string. I think there was initially some communication between these two to tell the second-level defender against this empty formation, go on ahead and push out into the flats. Safety sits down just outside the hash. There's your 4 under, 3 deep. The Steelers have been exceptional at a handful of coverages. I'd say at least 4 coverages that they've played really well for over 20 or 25 years. I think dating back to the time when Dick LeBeau was there the first time. This is one of my favorites because it takes a somewhat less athletic player on defense, whether it's an inside linebacker or a nickel safety, pushes him out to the flats and takes one of your starting 2 safeties, your 2 high safety structure, and pushes him down to the hash, forcing the quarterback to think, okay, why are they doing this? Well, when you prepare for a team in a given week, you know that they do these things often. I call it insert. In your terminology in Madden or college football, it's probably going to call it cover 3 buzz. Nonetheless, I think it's a nice little variation of cover 3 that doesn't bring anyone extra. So, again, you're talking about the guys who are on the line of scrimmage are the 4 players who rush. So you're not trying to necessarily trick anyone with a cover 3 insert or buzz, but it is giving the quarterback pause and forcing him to wonder which area of the field he has a particular route available to him because he sees a safety and a nickel/inside linebacker kind of exchange pass coverage areas. Like I said, the Steelers do an excellent job of this at all times. There's one more version. 2nd and 12, again, long yardage, ball between the -45 and the +45. Ends up being an incomplete pass. What I really like about it is that you give ball hawk guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick the ability to see the quarterback and come downhill and pace their advancement. So he doesn't have to fly downhill immediately. In fact, sometimes I think he's trying to hold off and go late so that the quarterback will throw the football and you can get a big hit, a pass deflection, or something like that. But there's your cover 3, 4 under, 3 deep. In this case, both of the corners taking zone turns, back or butt to the sideline. So this clean delineation of what a cover 3 insert or cover 3 buzz looks like. Lions doing so against Packers in week 4. I think that's Melifonwu up there. He's going to push Anzalone, the less athletic of those 2 guys, but certainly Alex Anzalone is a very underrated pass defender. This is a 3rd and 15, 3rd and 16. So you're not necessarily inserting at depth, from depth that far. So what I'm talking about is the line to gain a first down, is right here on the 30. Melifonwu's heels are at the 28. So on the snap, he's not inserting downhill. And look at the depth that Branch and Barnes are getting. Anzalone's to the boundary. He's got the running back release, so he's got a little bit less depth. I understand it. We'll run it through one more time so you can see the depth that Melifonwu stays at. 2 zone turns. You got outside leverage, cover 3 here, stacked cover 3 here, but still a zone turn. And then Walker, who's no longer with the team, working to the middle of the field. Again, my terminology is cover 3 insert. Others will call it cover 3 buzz. Finally, you've got another version of it. This is from 2022 wildcard game. Ravens visit the Bengals and give them hell that night. Of course, the Bengals won the game. Sam Hubbard's 99-yard fumble return for a touchdown. It's a great play by Marlon Humphrey up there to the top. They're releasing Patrick Queen into the boundary. Certainly looks like man reaction, which was what I think a lot of people would say. But what's happening here is Chuck Clark is stepping down outside the hash, and Hamilton and Queen have immediate flat now responsibilities. Roquan Smith is taking over Queen's drop on the hash. I'll run it back again, and we'll try to focus on the pre-snap alignment and where I believe guys were assigned to cover post-snap. Now, of course, Joe Burrow threw the ball quickly. He's really exceptional at that. But in a typical cover 3, Queen would be on the hash, Smith on the hash, curl flat defender Hamilton staying in this area, free safety, flying back to center field, Marcus Williams, sky weak. Sky to the offense's right, offense's left, defense's right. The Ravens are doing this in an unfamiliar manner. Somewhat less traditional, I should say. Still getting a 4-man rush off the jump. Defensive tackle Matabike sitting out. I believe Queen and Hamilton have dual flat responsibilities. It's a great reaction by Marlon Humphrey on the little snag flat concept. And Burrow is reading Queen. So Queen is sticking with the snag concept, which is a little angled hook like this to Jamar Chase. So he's going to swing it out to the flats now. And these are the types of things that the Ravens were exceptional at under Mike Macdonald when facing Joe Burrow, getting him to throw the ball quickly short, rally to it, make the tackle for a 4 or 5 yard gain, or forcing him to hesitate once or twice and then have to scramble out of bounds or throw an incompletion, or even worse for the Bengals, take a sack. So we've talked about sky cover 3 and teams using it to roll a safety down, oftentimes to the boundary, at least in the plays that I showed you. I'm going to digress here for a moment and talk about 2 coverages that have a lot of similarities, but one thing that's a stark difference, and that's cloud cover 3 and quarter half, or what a lot of people refer to as cover 6. So I believe this to be quarter half, whereby the corner to the boundary, in this case Kindle Vildor, is going to jam number 1, Justin Jefferson, and then settle into the flats. He's funneling him inside, and oftentimes you would do that in a quarter half, where you have the field side corner is responsible for 1/4 or 25% of the field, field side safety responsible for the other 25% or 1/4, and then the downside safety to the boundary is responsible for your half. 2 + 4 is 6. That's where cover 6 comes from. So you're pushing that guy inside to the safety because the safety's inside alignment, hence it's a cover 2. Now, in cloud cover 3, the only difference, or at least one of the main differences that I'm aware of, is you wouldn't have to jam number 1 inside, because this player would be a 1/3 responsible player. He wouldn't be responsible for half of the field. He will be responsible for a third. So you would be basically discussing this player here, Kirby Joseph, being more so in the middle of the field and responsible for the 1/3 middle of the field, and this this safety being responsible for a third instead of the half that I just discussed in a quarter half. It would still almost end up looking like the same thing. And to me, he's almost in a 1/3 alignment instead of a 1/2 alignment. So there can be times where quarter half and cloud cover 3, in my opinion, really look the same. Personally, the first time that people started to refer to quarter half that I heard of, like 2003 or 2004, I knew it to be cloud cover 3 because that was a system cloud and sky that I was exposed to, that I was aware of. In any case, sky would be a safety spinning down to play the boundary side flats, curl flat, and then this corner getting off to play deep thirds in a cover 3 relationship. Whether you want to call this quarter, quarter, half, cover 6, or cloud cover 3, it really doesn't matter to me. Responsibility wise, you have 4 underneath droppers. The force hard corner down here, Kindle Vildor, will generally have less depth. Why? Because on the snap, he was jamming number 1 inside because that was his primary responsibility, is to jam a special receiver away from the pass strength and then settle into the flats. In a cloud cover 3 alignment, you don't have to jam him because you have a deep third safety who's basically playing corner in a cover 3 alignment. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. I didn't see as many examples that presented this much of a gray area. Most of the time, quarter, quarter, half is quite obvious when you've got a single receiver to the boundary and an outside corner, or a corner taking outside leverage. In this case, it's kind of muddied a little bit for us because right now the tight end is the outside receiver, and they switch it with this out motion by Jefferson to kind of clean him up. I think it's a great call by the Lions, whether you want to call it cloud cover 3 or quarter, quarter, half. Quarterback is clearly looking in that direction. Once the tight end 86 goes under, you have absolutely triangulated Justin Jefferson with an inside linebacker, Anzalone. I think it's Ifeatu Melifonwu, the deep safety, whose feet are outside of the bottom of the numbers, and then the hard corner, Kindle Vildor, triangulating that one receiver. So when we say quarter, quarter, half, can take away a backside X receiver, that's what we mean, because you can really triangulate one guy, even though in this particular example that I showed you, there was 2 receivers there in the case of Justin Jefferson and the tight end number 86. We've spent significant time illustrating some of the different versions of cover 3, if you will. Sky, insert / buzz, drop cover 3, where an outside linebacker drops into the flats, and then cloud cover 3, which is less commonly referred to now, and oftentimes I think can really just be synonymous with quarter, quarter, half, or cover 6. And we'll get to 4 examples from how Mike Macdonald and the Ravens utilized multiple versions of cover 3, in my opinion, to slow down quarterback processing, and I think offensive coordinators' ability to smoothly call plays. You saw so many times where in 2nd and 7, or even 2nd and long, like this one from 2023, the offense is put in almost a vice grip by things that Mike Macdonald and the Ravens did. How much of that is just going to shift hundreds of miles west to Seattle, Washington, and how much of that is going to stick around in Baltimore now that Zach Orr is the defense coordinator? I don't know. I just know it's a brilliant way to utilize 2 or 3 or 4 different versions of cover 3 and give the quarterback multiple things to process while worrying about the pass rush getting there. You have a 4-man rush, Jadeveon Clowney dropping out into the flats, Patrick Queen playing on the hash to the left but picking up 3 underneath, and then Geno Stone dropping down on the hash to the right, and he will make a big hit on Boyd. It ends up being a completed pass to the downside of the screen. You're basically playing man on the X receiver, the backside of a 3-by-1 formation. Oftentimes Joe Burrow was content to go to those matchups. Down to the bottom side, you can see there's a zone turn with his back to the quarterback. Man turn with his back to the quarterback, whereas you have a zone turn up here to the top side. The ball was thrown extremely quickly on a 2nd and 14. Joe Burrow specializes in that. I mentioned it a couple times in the video. That was the chess match that Mike Macdonald was able to win a lot of hands on, if you will. I guess the card game to win a lot of hands on against Joe Burrow was forcing him to get rid of the ball quick, having a low yards per attempt, and putting the Bengals in a shit ton of 3rd and 4s. And that was if you ask me, that's one of the underrated things that Mike Macdonald did in 2022 and 2023 was force Joe Burrow into a bunch of decisions, not bad decisions, but where there was no high-level ceiling for his options that were there. This is 2 receivers into the boundary. One of them is a tight end, and one of them is the Z receiver, which in this case happens to be Ja'Marr Chase. Running back is set to the field. Ravens are going to sky the safety to the field and drop Clowney into the boundary, blitzing Kyle Hamilton off the edge. And as Burrow goes to throw the football into the boundary, quick, he believes, because he's got a zone turn up here, he has to hold on to the football because Clowney is in the window, number one. Number two, Patrick Queen as the boundary side inside linebacker is inside leverage on the tight end. So you have 3 over 2 in that short space. And the short concepts or short route concepts that both of those guys, the tight end and Chase, were running. It's just an example of how often Mike Macdonald changed the read for Joe Burrow, such that whatever was called pre-snap by the offensive coordinator is not how things worked out on the field post-snap. This is dating back to wildcard game in 2022, a game where I thought the Ravens defense really proved that they were for real in terms of dealing with the 11 personnel passing game that Joe Burrow and those guys specialized in, dating back to Ja'Marr Chase's rookie year. So you've got a drop by the boundary side outside linebacker. This time it's Odafe Owe, but he does a great job of engaging first. And since he's to the single receiver side, he drops out a little bit late and it doesn't impact the defense. Kyle Hamilton is going to blitz off the edge, creating that 4-man rush. And they're replace dropping here with the insert safety to the field. You can see the cover 3 delineation with, again, the outside linebacker taking the more shallow pass drop, zone turn by the corners, free safety reading the quarterback's eyes, which is typical. That's in the high school level. That's the guy that we taught to read the quarterback the most was the free safety. But you can see the 3 deep, 4 under delineation. If this was a corner, like the play that I showed you by the Lions, Kendall Vildor, you would say, well, that looks like cloud cover 3 or quarter, half. Sometimes these things can look very similar. And by the way, that's Justin Houston with another sack in 2022. He had a pretty much historic run for a period of time in terms of sacks versus snaps played on the field. He's stunting to the inside, so Hamilton can blitz to the outside. Country cover 3 at the NFL level doesn't exist. You've got pattern match, and you've got so many versions of the coverage that it forces quarterbacks into getting rid of the ball quickly so that they won't take a sack or a negative yardage play and going to their safer options because they're unsure of what the guys on the back end are doing. This time the Ravens are dropping again. It's Clowney, but he's not dropping to the flats. This is one of the more interesting versions of cover 3 that I saw them run last year, because he's dropping to the hash, and Roquan Smith is playing the hash on the right. Gardner Minshew's getting rid of the ball quick. Ends up being a very short gain, I think 3 yards. Daryl Worley, Roquan Smith in on the tackle. What I think is really notable about this is you do have a 3 receiver set to the offense's right, the downside of the screen for us. But in terms of what they cover, well, Kyle Hamilton covers the curl flat, the area of the field that you would expect him to cover lined up as a nickel defender. Patrick Queen is going to get a free rush through the B gap. Roquan Smith is going to push to his pass coverage. Jadeveon Clowney is going to take over Roquan Smith's pass coverage. I talked about it earlier, guys being on a string or a rope together. Basically, these 3 here are on a string together once Queen blitzes. Smith is pulled into his area, and Clowney is pulled into Roquan Smith's coverage area, his pre-snap coverage area, and the safety, Daryl Worley, spinning down, is involved in a tackle, forcing the quarterback to make these decisions quickly. Not knowing where the rush is coming from is just part of the brilliance of what Mike Macdonald and many other defensive coordinators in the NFL do. The cover 3 is a safe version or a safe platform to accomplish that task out of, I guess is a way to describe it. I really enjoy trying to put together videos that package similar looking plays from multiple teams. Nonetheless, I do recognize that won't always draw Ravens fans' interest or Lions fans' interest or Seahawks fans' interest because it's not about their team and their team only. So if you did sit and watch all of this, listen to me pontificate on all the different versions of Cover 3, then first of all, thank you. I really appreciate it. These are a whole lot of fun to do. As we get closer to training camp, you'll probably see less and less of these. My motivation, or I guess I should say the impetus for these things to occur, is when I watch so much film of various teams, Ravens, Lions, Steelers, Bengals, Seahawks, I end up gathering similar coverage plays or similar offensive plays in some cases, and then putting them into folders. That's the reason why I can quote to you that I had about 25% of the coverage plays I had organized on my computer, I would consider to be cover three. 5 or 6 of them, maybe a little more, look like possibly quarter, half, or cloud cover three. My own terminology is old terminology, cloud and sky, and insert. I recognize that Madden and NCAA and most NFL terminology is not going to utilize those phrases. You have to let me know if you, first of all, if you appreciate the way that I try to package these together to show how teams are still playing antiquated cover three, but they've kind of regurgitated it into a newer, more versatile format by utilizing safeties in multiple versions across the field, sometimes slinging the coverage on a string like I showed you on the last play with Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, and Jadeveon Clowney. And then finally with the outside linebackers dropping mostly to the boundary, sometimes to the field, to get in windows and not allow the quarterback to get rid of the ball quick. I think that's one of the reasons why the Ravens had 100 sacks in the last 2 years under Mike Macdonald's system. Personally, I hope they can retain that dynamic, changing the look for the quarterback post-snap in a way that forces more, quote, coverage snaps. And I do expect Mike Macdonald to bring that dynamic to Seattle with all of the coverage talent and rush talent that they have there. Appreciate you guys' time. Please let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. If you think other NFL fans, regardless of team, would appreciate this video, this look at cover three and how it's utilized to be multiple yet safe at the same time, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.